Lynn Altieri-Need. I don't know if you guys know her or not. She's a 2013 graduate, so she's made a lot of headway with her business in just a mere 4 years, working in some different areas. So that's one reason we wanted to have her on, because we have a lot of people that say, well, what about maybe working with children? What are some of your thoughts on that? What can we do? What kind of boundaries? How do we think through some of those things? But she also has a little bit of specialty in autism and then also seizures. So interesting conversation we're going to have today here. So again, if you guys have questions on those topics, just hit one, ask Lynn a question. She's got a wealth of information and experience she wants to share. So, but Lynn, are you on?
I am, yes. Thank you, Brandon, for having me. And hello to the community. I will share with you, I was in your seat about 4 years ago, not quite sure where the course was going to take me. I knew what my drive and my passion was, but I'm really excited to be sitting here with all of you right now. So just know I've been where you are.
Excellent, excellent. It's a fun journey. You never know where it's going to take you, but you stick to those principles, and I think we just want to help people, and we do things right. Things are going to go really well, so that's what's happened with you. But tell us, Lynn, maybe what brought you to FDN? I know there's a couple stories I want to make sure that you share, one about yourself, but also about your son. So how did you come to meet FDN?
Yes, so if I begin with my health history, at the age of 12, at the onset of having my first period, I was experiencing excruciating pain. And within a couple of months of continuing, through normal development and menstruating, I was vomiting and having diarrhea and having really adverse symptoms. So it was embarrassing. I was in school, obviously, and so typically 1 to 2 days a month I would miss school because of being so sick. I was ultimately or eventually diagnosed with endometriosis. Of course, diagnoses are based on symptoms. So for many years, I was placed on medications. In my early 20s, I was recommended a hysterectomy, but I knew that one day I wanted to have children. And then I think the last medication that I was prescribed was a narcotic, which made me feel horrible. At that point, I was about 24. So this is, continuing through even my university years and my career years, still missing at least one day of work per month. And I picked up a copy in 1996 of Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom by Dr. Christine Northrup, who's an amazing woman. And she had discussed an elimination diet. And I figured I had nothing to lose. I was raised in a very Italian American family with lots of meats and cheeses, and so I eliminated some foods, and my pain dissipated. And ultimately, after about 3 months, it actually almost went away. I felt like a normal woman again. So back in 1996, I knew and understood about the power of diet, and I definitely continued on a health venture at that point. And then in 2002, I had my first daughter, and she's now 14 years of age. And then in 2005, I had my son, who is now 11 years of age. And my son came into this world, both my children came into this world, healthy, normal development. And then at 4 years of age, he started having multiple seizures per day. And he was having everything from grand mal seizures to drop seizures, which I don't know if many of you are familiar with. I didn't even know they existed. Extremely painful to watch, and absence seizures as well. So he was experiencing anywhere from 20 to 30 a day. So immediately I looked up, and yeah, it was shocking. It really was, and I realized we were at the mercy of a medical care system, and I was. Anything that they said was pretty much gold standard, even though I had had a long history personally of knowing that the healthcare system isn't really designed for chronic illness. It's really well designed for acute level of care. At least that's been my experience. Crisis care, I would be at their mercy. But when it came to chronic long-term care, for me, it didn't work. So with my son, at first I thought, what can you do for him? And it was, prescribing medications. And I remember the very first neurologist we met with, I said, what can we do to strengthen his central nervous system? And she said nothing. And at that point I thought, no, there has to be something more we can do to really strengthen the body, not just put him on medications. So he was placed on, we tried many medications that didn't stop the seizures, and I immediately investigated a diet that would be effective, or hopefully be effective. And within 5 months, we had him, we found another neurologist who was willing to put him on a ketogenic diet. This is the classic ketogenic diet where you measure everything on a gram scale. All meals are calculated through a calculator. And we put him on the ketogenic diet, 4 times the amount of fat to proteins and carbohydrates. And his seizures increased while being hospitalized. And then ultimately we noticed that there was some decrease in seizures. However, we modified the diet on several occasions, working with a dietitian, and his seizures continued. So we really felt that the ketogenic diet was not working effectively. He was on 3 medications at that time. And so I was always scouring at that point for all research that I could pull up. And I had come across a DAN doctor, which stood for Defeat Autism Now. And at that point, I realized that they looked more at systems, and I was really concerned that there was something metabolically happening. And I didn't feel as though the doctors were supporting our son's health at all. He was deteriorating. I felt like we were losing him at certain times. He would drift off looking into the distance, and he didn't have a lot of energy. He was grossly fatigued, and a lot of things were happening. So I think I fired that 3rd neurologist. I remember my husband looking at me and thinking, what did you just do? But by that point, we were working with a Defeat Autism Now doctor, and he had identified some impaired detoxification pathways. So we began to support them, and within 2.5 weeks, his seizures ended.
Wow.
And
I'll interject. I couldn't imagine what that would feel like, of all the years and time and effort as a mother putting in, and then all of a sudden that quickly to change. Wow.
Yeah, extremely powerful. And I should back up that at that time too, we had an appointment scheduled with Dr. David Perlmutter. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, an excellent neurologist. And it was 6 months out. So my son was seizure-free 8 days prior to us meeting with him. We flew to Florida to meet with him. So, and he did some further testing at that point, but and added a few additional supplements. But from that day forward, it was July 24th, I'll never forget that day, he has remained seizure-free. And so after 1 year, we were able to take him off the medications. I continued to keep him on the ketogenic diet. I felt like it could only help. It was fats for the brain. It was reducing sugars. I understand a lot more about, some really key pieces that it could have been supporting, including his digestive system. So the ketogenic diet was the last thing to go. But it's over 5 years now that he has remained seizure-free. And if you met him, you would never know he experienced seizures. He plays the cello. He speaks in 2 languages. He's athletic. He's full of life. So it's extremely, powerful story. And at that point, I thought, wow, there is more to this. And I know there are a lot more families that are suffering like I was as a parent. So, sorry, Brandon, I'm doing a lot of talking. Did you have any questions for me so far?
No, it's great. Just keep going. Keep going.
Okay. So at that point, I continued to research because my mission is to keep him healthy and to make sure that I understand what I need to know to support him on a systems level. Because what I've realized is working, allopathically, that focus isn't on systems. It's more on symptoms. So I had read a book on functional medicine, and I really felt like, wow, there's a model for essentially what we did for our son. So at that point, I remember Googling functional nutrition because I thought I'm not going to go back to college to get my medical degree. I'm 46 years old and wasn't feeling as though that was my time in life. So I Googled functional nutrition, just thinking maybe that's a possibility, and FDN came up. So I immediately called. I remember this was in January, and Reed answered the phone. And I was so thrilled that he answered, and I asked him all questions about his program. I explained the history of my son, and I think I just wanted to make sure that what I read was for real. Could I really become a practitioner that can do some testing? Because I knew, testing was going to be extremely instrumental in working with all individuals with health issues. And I realized then and there, so I took it underway and really aggressively pursued the FDN at that point. It was just my passion. I knew I had to understand a little bit more about how systems work and how interdependent they are, and how we can, how the body adapts and compensates, and how we can get it back to thinking the way we'd like it to think, and function. So it was really neat that I had that conversation with Reed, and that still holds a very memorable moment for me. And since that time, Reed and I have spoken, but it was very powerful. So that's how I really became involved with FDN.
Wow, amazing stories. I always love getting to talk with a new trainee that comes to the course and to hear their health story, how they got to this point. Because most people, I find, they're not really starting. They don't go to natural health school when they turn 18. It's just usually not a path people take. Maybe it's happening more so now, but it's kind of like something has to kind of propel you into this. And a lot of times it's either your own health or the health of a child or a parent, family member, something like that propels you into that. So, and that's what it is for you for sure. And I think one thing I take away from your son's situation there, I wouldn't say all the things you tried didn't work. I'd say it was all part of what the process that you went through. But basically what I'm hearing from you is like we just kept digging. We kept going. We kept looking. We did not give up, kept going. And that's, I think, a lesson right there. Some situations kind of like yours may, I guess I won't put words in your mouth here, but relatively resolved fairly easily with some dietary changes, a few things that you did there. But then like your son, it was much more involved. You didn't find the answer so readily.
Excellent point. And that's really what drove me to become more involved with functional diagnostic nutrition, because I realized that nutrition is a foundation and it's essential, but it's not, sometimes we have to dig deeper. And my son was, the ultimate story in that, is what I would say. And I feel very fortunate, Brandon. How did I resolve my endometriosis? I know so many women that had their uterus removed, as a result of thinking that was their only option. So I was so fortunate for that. And I'm fortunate to be sitting here and saying that, my son's seizures became resolved as well. And you're right, we did dig deep. We did do IgG sensitivities immediately. I sought a chiropractor. We did NAET, nutritional balancing, neurofield work. We even sought a shaman at one point. So, you just dig, and I felt like if we could fire in all areas, then something will work, something will take. And I do, like I was mentioning earlier, I do believe that the ketogenic diet was a foundational diet. I do think it offered him some support. I was highly suspicious of him having a gut infection, which every doctor really discouraged. And this is 7 years ago, when really the gut-brain connection, the two-way street wasn't talked about so heavily. And so, they would say no. But, ultimately being on a low to almost no sugar diet would have been very effective at potentially eradicating, any infections that did exist, and in supporting and healing the gut. So I do think it was a step in the right direction. I just think that ultimately it wasn't the magic bullet, which, I think we know in functional diagnostic nutrition that there is no magic bullet, really. The body adapts and compensates over time and weakens, and so it takes some time to get it back, Mm-hmm.
And you got to set those expectations early on for people. But it's a hopeful thing. It's not like, well, we may have to do this and this and this. Well, it's a good thing that we know enough things to look for. It's not just, you're right, just if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We've got so many different ways we can address this and areas to look into. And Reed's done a good job of determining, okay, here's where you probably want to start. Here's your 5 labs. Here's what's going to see the most success for most people, and you do the dress protocol, and you start there, and that does resolve a whole lot of issues for people, which is the good thing there. But it's funny you talking about Reed answering the phone. He did the same thing with me. I think he's ribbed me about this on the Friday call before, but I think I called him about 4 different times. I think by the 4th time he was kind of like, okay, are you going to sign up or what? I think I've answered all the questions I can answer, sign up for the course. So he's very good about that. He'll tell it to you straight. So, all right. So, yes. So let's switch gears here a little bit and talk about. Let's maybe get into your practice a little bit. Like I said, I wanted to maybe kind of talk a little bit about tips and things, what you think through working with different populations, especially with the seizures, with children, those type of things. So, what segment of the population do you find yourself working with mostly right now?
Children. So children and families, ultimately, working with the parents of children. And that is, and it took me some years to get to this point. And for the new trainees or even the newly certified, I would encourage you, I was a generalist, I'd say, for quite a few years. And it helped me in really understanding so many other different facets about systems and becoming effective in supporting those areas with individuals. So, more of a generalist, but just in the last year, well, to be honest, I'm going to be really honest here, about 1.5 years ago, I studied under Dr. Sarah Gottfried on the hormone cure, and I have been delving into creating my own specialty. I also studied under the Academy of Functional Medicine, Dr. Charles Gant, on neurological disorders, gastrointestinal disorders, amino acid deficiencies, organic acids, and part of this reason is really just trying to, again, remember why I got into this to begin with, right? And that is, how do I keep my son healthy, and how can I potentially support other families? So I've delved into other areas, and even working with Dr. Sarah Gottfried was very personal to me because of my history with endometriosis, and again, focusing on the stress response, which is so crucial with anyone that's experiencing any type of chronic illness, especially children or individuals that are experiencing seizures. So, and I had a lot of people that would say, Lynn, why don't you just work with weight loss? Why don't you just work with hormones? It's a lot less stressful. Like, why are you thinking that you'd want to work with kids with seizures? And would you have hired someone that when your child is having seizures that didn't have a medical degree, which is a very valid question, because I would have definitely asked that question. Do you have a medical degree? So, and I hope everyone's following me here in this course of thought. So I did dabble in other specialties because I did know that I needed to narrow my niche. And now where I live locally, I still have people knock on my door. I don't advertise in the newspaper. They've heard through word of mouth how effective this process is, working as an FDN practitioner. So, but then about 1 year ago, I just said, you know what, I think it's time. I really felt it was time for me to reach out and see how families responded to what I was willing to support. And by that time, I'd already built up about 70 plus medical research articles and blogged on them. I also had developed an ebook about systems approach and how you can support the brain and how mitochondrial dysfunction and detoxification pathways that are impaired can also link to seizures. And this is all, documented through science journals. So I compiled that information and I held a few webinars, and I realized that parents are in the same situation today that I was in 7 years ago. Nothing has changed. It really, really frustrates me. So I realized that they need support and that they want support. And so after a few months of deciding I'm going to commit fully to nutrition for seizures, and yes, I still work with other clients. I still have adult clients that come to me, like I mentioned, with word of mouth. But nutrition for seizures has become my focus. And so I've really narrowed my focus of study as well. Again, looking at biochemical interventions and how essential they are, and potentially helping children recover with any metabolic dysfunction. So that's when I pursued Autism Mastery course through Dr. Kurt Wohler, who's an amazing man, an amazing doctor, and I've become certified in that. And that really helped me in delving a little bit deeper, and that's all what this has been about, is how can I go deeper into digestive disorders and detoxification supports and nutritional deficiencies and diet, and which is, the surface foundation really comes from functional diagnostic nutrition. It comes from this course. So this is just me taking it to a deeper level. My focus right now is, and it will continue to be, is nutrition for seizures. I work with some adults as well that experience seizures, and I work with people all over the world. That's the beauty about the world being so flat right now with technology, is other than time changes, there's very few challenges with being able to communicate.
That's a very good thing. So when you're working with, we'll just say, children with seizures, so what are you finding? Are there patterns or the things that you see that every child has the same problems, or is everybody quite different? What kind of things are you seeing when you're, and I guess also too, you're doing some level of testing and also some questionnaires, things like that. Can you talk a little bit about that, how that looks?
Absolutely. And, many of these children, these parents, of course, are coming to me about their children, but they're coming into the world very similar to my son, healthy, normal development, and then an onset of seizures. And they often experience other types of conditions, such as headaches or stomach aches or distended, bloating in the stomach, constipation, or even diarrhea. So definitely some other conditions that exist. And there's a fantastic study that when I found this a few years ago, this is when I said, you know what, I really can make a difference here. And I don't mean to focus on medical research in this conversation, but it is so key to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's titled the Oligoantigenic Diet Treatment of Children with Epilepsy and Migraine. And I won't go through it all, but the summary is...
It's a mouthful.
It is. So oligoantigenic really means an elimination diet. So it means just giving a few key foods that typically do not create an immune response and do not create other responses in the body as well. So very benign type meats and vegetables. And then slowly introducing new foods. And out of these 63 children, 25 stopped having seizures. That, to me, is extremely powerful, because these parents that are coming to me are still telling, their neurologists are still saying to them, there's nothing you can do for diet. We can try the ketogenic diet. That's the only one that some will hang their hat on. But not even all will consider the ketogenic diet, even though the research is definitely stating that it can be supportive. So when I read this, I thought, you know what, there's so much more here that we're just not identifying. So with these parents, they approach me. Their children have these other conditions, and we focus on assessing first. And dress really ties into here, because I do discuss a lot about diet, rest, some levels of exercise depending on the age of the child, what their stress levels are like, and then what any supplements that parents are doing. And what I'm finding is most parents are coming to me, they already have their child on a slew of supplements. They don't realize contraindications, conflicts with medications. They're just winging it because there's no supports out there for it. Yeah, and you know what, I know what it's like to be that parent when you're feeling desperate. So I can certainly relate to them with that. So a lot of what I do is just ensuring that they're working with a primary care physician and a neurologist or a neurologist. And then also I do support them a lot in trying to find the right team members. I've had some clients that have had horrible neurologists. I mean, absolutely borderline unethical. So I've really encouraged them to seek support elsewhere and help them find other resources where they can find. And I've had one parent say it has made a world of difference for her just to have a neurologist that will help assess and not just prescribe. So, sometimes it's setting up team but it is also, I will do an organic acids test and an IgG food sensitivity, as well as a hair metal test. Those are typically my three first-line tests that I'll do with individuals to assess for any potential metabolic dysfunction.
When you say team, put a team together, is that you said physicians, but also like maybe chiropractors and acupuncturists or things of that nature too, other practitioners?
Yes, and I appreciate you elaborating on that because I didn't, but yes, absolutely can be that. And then it's also about the family support. So I had family members that really challenged anything that I was doing that deviated from the medical norm. And of course, we were complying with all medications that were prescribed. So that's very frustrating as a parent. So I often make sure that they have supports in place, whether it's family or if they have a church community or if they have a few good friends that believe in what they're doing and can support them through this process. That can also, they can also be individuals that really support that team. It's extremely defeating being a parent going, experiencing any type of chronic health crisis with your child. So I think that's a key piece. And then, being able to identify, are there some metabolic areas that we can potentially support digestive issues, fatty acid oxidation, detoxification pathways and supports in those areas, nutritional deficiencies that are identified. Yeah. So those areas are really a key focus to begin with. Yeah.
Is there an age that, like, what's the age range, kind of what you see? Like, is it from 3 years old up to 16, or does it go younger or older than that? What's that range look like?
I'm seeing even younger than that, 1.5 years, a year old to about 16. The standard, though, is, if I were to average it out, I'd say it's still starting around age 3. Age 3 is when many of the onsets come. Now, I will share with you, too, I have families that have come to me knowing that their children have come into this world with seizures, but still would like to explore any potential metabolic dysfunction and if there's, areas of support that we can put in place. I'm extremely cautious with supplements. I will be really clear here because of potential conflicts. As well as, so just really making sure that there's other ways of supporting systems and in addition to some supplements. There are some supplements that I feel okay with.
Sure. Well, diet, with as powerful as diet can be, that could be just something as simple as that, is a huge part of what moves the needle the right direction. What about as far as like deciding to work with a family, or do you have to turn people away? Are there things that you look for that are warning signs this may not be the best partnership, or do people come to you pretty much know who you are, ready to go, and you just go through the process with them?
I appreciate that question. I had so I offer a 30-minute complimentary consultation for all potential clients if they want to share with me. And I give them about 5-10 minutes to just share what they have been experiencing. Many of them need to unload, and then maybe 5 minutes about what they've tried and what's been effective. So most times, it seems like it's a good working relationship because I also share with them then what I do. I assess how much they've reviewed on my website. I have recorded webinars. I have research, lots of information there. But I just had a potential client recently. We had a nice conversation, but, she said, I really can't consider taking my child off of wheat. And I said, just to share with you, this is one of the major foundations of how I work. And so I really don't feel as though I'd be giving you 100% as a practitioner. And we wouldn't know if it's truly effective, everything that we're doing, if it came to that, I would recommend eliminating wheat. And just to share with you, there's only one blanket statement I probably make with all of my potential clients, that anyone that's experiencing neurological disorders, I recommend they stop eating wheat. So that's one blanket statement that I'll make. And dairy is actually coincides with that because of the similar, molecular makeup and such. So it's all about reducing the immune response, understanding that the brain is primarily immune. That's a big focus of what I do. So, at that point, I just said, let me know if this is something you'd like to reconsider, and you know how you can reach me. So it's not always a perfect match, is what I would say. And it oftentimes just comes down to assessing. Sometimes parents will say, well, I don't have the money. That's always a tough one for me because I feel as though every parent should be granted this support. But at the same time, we need to be able to pay our bills and work through that. So there's sometimes I will support families on a minimal level. It's almost pro bono work is what I call it.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up. That's the whole charging and money thing, I think, is something to work through for every practitioner, especially when you're starting doing this work. I think a lot of us get into this because we're just good-hearted people, so to speak, and we like to give, we like to help people, but that time sometimes can kind of be to a fault. We want to give everything away. We want to work for free and help as many people as possible, and as you know, like you're talking about vetting people, that may not actually be benefiting them. They may not be ready for this. They just can't do the program, and you're right. You've got to pay your bills, so I'd much rather you be in business 5 years from now continuing to help people than not charge enough and not have a successful business. So there's a balance there for sure. I'm glad you brought that up. You're right. Gluten or wheat's the only big blanket thing, but everybody is so different. And that's why we do the work we do, where we test and we see what's going on and we know for sure. And it's very personalized. Yes, we might run 5 different labs, and we always run these on all people, but what comes back in your situation is all different. So you're right. So take that information, just kind of think through it, and we've got to customize it for each person. So definitely guys hear that loud and clear.
Yes, and I just want to touch on, because I know the organic acids test isn't in the first phase of the FDN training. At least it wasn't. Am I correct, Brandon?
It's still not. It's more of a second level, right?
Second level, right. So just to share with you, I did do a lot of adrenal stress profiles, and I still do a lot of comprehensive stool analysis. So there's those 5 tests that we often talk about in the initial phases of or in that first level of FDN. I've done a lot of those. Now, working with children, the parents can report to me their circadian rhythms, right, kind of their energy throughout the day and at night, so I can get some idea there. And all of them are under some type of adrenal stress, and even deeper at a mitochondrial level. But I don't use these much with kids because it's testing for hormones, and I don't do hormone support with children. So I just wanted to make that point as well. Whereas, with women and men, that adrenal stress profile is extremely instrumental. I found that very effective working with many adult clients.
Yep, glad that's one of the reasons we want to have you on, is because I knew things are a little bit different with children. You don't do everything as you would do with an adult. So, I'm glad you pointed that out, and that's just the process. You're right. I do the same thing. There's areas that are going to tend to be more of an issue. Plus, you're very specialized too in some situations too. So, you're certain tests that you're going to run out of the block, and I'm guessing too some of these people that come to you, like you said, they have maybe some tests they've ran already. There's some information they bring to you, so you can just kind of bring it all together into a body of knowledge you can do to make recommendations on.
Absolutely, and I actually offer on my site for anybody who visits the site a list of recommended lab work that they can have their doctors do, and with medical journals substantiating the reasons why, so that they have that kind of in their back pocket. Because I remember going to doctors and feeling like the white elephant in the room every time I suggested maybe they should do an amino acid profile, right? So, it's so important to feel as though you have that support as well as a parent, understanding that, there's a lot of science out there that backs up that, supporting systems can be a very effective means of eradicating symptoms, right? So it's necessary to have those supports in place. Yeah.
Well, we've got a hand raised, so let's go for a question here, Lynn, if you're okay with that.
Sounds great.
We've got 609 area code. What's your name? What's your question for Lynn?
Hi, my name is Sharon. I'm a recent graduate for FDN, and I have a comment and a question. Hi, Brandon. How are you?
Hi. Doing good. Go for it.
This is so interesting to me. My comment is that I have been an ambassador with Dr. Sarah's Reset hormone program for about 3 years, her online program. And I am definitely a strong follower of Dr. Sarah and her new pilot program, Younger, for her new book. So I was really happy to hear you mention her name because I think she's wonderful. And also, I teach therapeutic horseback riding. As a matter of fact, I teach yoga on horseback to broad spectrum autism children. And so I had this wonderful exposure to all these people who could just so benefit by this information. And I was curious, I think you may have answered the question. I've been just really wondering how I could reach out to this population. And I'm not sure. I wasn't sure because I know generally we start with the 205 and I didn't really feel comfortable to deal with hormones with children, and you said you don't. So I was wondering if you could speak about that a little bit. I'm not even sure how to broach the subject with my riders' parents, but I experience all kinds of meltdowns and behavioral problems, and they're sick a lot, but we for obvious reasons don't take children that are experiencing seizures.
Right. Yeah, and I can understand why there'd be a safety risk there. So, I would really encourage, digestive health is extremely integral, definitely. Now, with children that have autistic symptoms, they are really experiencing complex metabolic dysfunction. They really are. And so I would really encourage you to become a little more versed in the organic acids test. I feel like that type of testing, I don't know, I know you're just graduating, you may not want to jump right into level 2, but I would really encourage that, especially for you to get the support through that, because that can really identify multiple areas. Now, with the existing testing that you do through level 1 FDN, the digestive interventions could be crucial as well. It could be really instrumental for many of these kids have yeast problems. They may have bacteria problems with Clostridia. There's something called HPA, which can really add to hyperactivity and anxiety, and those things can be assessed on an organic acids test. So, I think that could be helpful. But even with the digestive issues, I don't know what your background is. I'm sorry I didn't hear that prior to joining FDN. But, foods are a real challenge with many kids that are on the autism spectrum. So working with families in that way, it sounds like you're doing a lot of therapeutic work with them. I think I'd need to understand a little bit more of what your background is and how you can support them. But it's a really challenging population, which is part of the reason why I took that autism mastery course, is because I felt like if I could understand how to work with the most complex metabolic disorders, then I can support my children with seizures and anyone else with chronic health issues as well. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. You gave me a lot to look up and think about, and I appreciate it because I've been pondering it and I'm just, not getting anywhere with it. So you gave me some direction.
Good.
Great question, Sharon.
Thank you.
Any follow-up to that, or?
No, not me. I'll just continue to listen. But thanks for taking my question. I'm really enjoying it.
Awesome.
The podcast. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Sharon. I don't know exactly how to broach that population, the subject with that population either exactly, but I'd just say try to figure out some way to do it because you could be the answer for them, or you will be the answer for them. So I think when you've got something good to share with people, you just don't be afraid to change somebody's life. It's kind of what I say, but Lynn, you may have more to say about that, but I say be bold when it comes to those things. Find your timing to be correct, but be bold at the same time.
I like that, Brandon, and I do think you need to put yourself out there. Yeah, absolutely. Have that conversation with one of the parents. Say, I'm doing this, and would you be willing to, or, what do you think? Just have that conversation. These parents are exhausted, and I can relate. I think I had a big pair of sunglasses that I cried behind every day, and I'm not a crier. I don't think I've cried since my son recovered. I'm just... So, that's the truth. And these parents are under so much stress. So in the earlier, even children later you can work with as well. I have some teenage clients. They're my toughest for sure because they want to eat whatever they want and they want to sneak food and, they don't want to do special diets. And, I'm here to support the parents as well. So they want to know what their tools are. And so we help identify those tools and then support them. Something else, too, I just thought of, Brandon, and I come up with a few things that can really communicate a strong message to your client base. Like, I love the brain-body diagram, Reed. I don't think you're on this call, but I just want to, I use that often. It really helps people understand. I use the acronym HIDDEN. I think that's fantastic. And just looking at internal stressors, because everybody can understand what external stress is. So, using those things can help communicate a little bit more of what we do because we are filled in an allopathic model, which is very much a pill for an ill approach. So it is more about, okay, how do I explain what I do? Because we're almost pushing like a paradigm shift, right? And thinking about health. So really coming up with a few of those things. I also use something called a bathtub analogy with my clients. And I say that, your son is a bathtub. He has multiple faucets, and we need to identify what those faucets are so we can turn them down or turn them off so that they stop filling the tub and he reaches a point to having a seizure. And then also assess, any potential nutritional deficiencies, in other words, in making sure that his drain works. So, and parents will say to me often, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Now I get it a little bit more of what you're trying to do. So come up with a few key things. Use what Reed shares and what he teaches because those are really helpful, I find.
I would agree. I'd definitely second the brain-body diagram. I start with that with every person. That's the foundational understanding of how we work and how this whole process, and it's very easy to understand. So if you've not practiced sketching that out, at least do that. Watch that video on there. It's one from a few years ago, but it just goes through that process, and it's just tremendous. I agree. Those analogies are very powerful. Exactly. Sharon started something, so we have another hand raised. This is 702
Great.
Area code. So 702, what's your name? What's your question?
Hi, Lynn. Hi, Brandon. This is Sean Merrick out of Sacramento, just a recent graduate. Just have a quick question. First off, I have to apologize. I came on a little late. Hey, Brandon, how are you?
Good.
Good. Hopefully dinner was good last Wednesday for you and your wife.
Oh, yes, it was.
Back
yes, it was. Yeah, you recall.
Back to the quick question. I came on a little late, so I apologize if this has already been addressed or not. But as a recent graduate and provided my academic background, I'm looking for more advanced knowledge. And no program's perfect. There's probably some loopholes that we've all seen in the FDN, and I'm not picking on that as I think the level 2 is probably advantageous. But where would you point new graduates that are looking for more in-depth knowledge than just the 5 tests that we're educated on?
Is that question for me or you, Brandon?
For you, Lynn.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Sean. Thanks for the clarification. You know what? I would really think about who you want to service and then specialize in that area. So, for instance, I mentioned Dr. Sarah Gottfried, the hormone cure, because I was contemplating working with women specifically and really making that my niche. That may not be a population that you're interested in, so you wouldn't go in that direction. So I don't know if you heard me say earlier, I've studied under the Academy of Functional Medicine because I wanted to understand more about amino acid deficiencies and gastrointestinal consequences and neurological disturbances and things like that. So, I started to almost create my own specialty, if that makes sense, on things that were I'm very passionate about and very interested in. So it might be helpful for me, Sean, do you know what population you'd like to work with?
Well, it's very interesting. My girlfriend's a marketing guru. social media marketing genius. What we're coming up with is it may not be the best option. And as you suggested earlier, gut health is really a cornerstone for all. So I don't necessarily want to niche, because the program related to hormone cure would also help men, because that goes back to some of the core issues that we've studied with liver dysfunction. So I can't answer that, because I'm not necessarily wanting to niche. And Brandon can jump on as well, is just looking for more in-depth, because all I've been trained on are the first 5 tests. And I'm realizing quickly that regardless of who comes to me, I'm going to need further education, further testing, accessibility, and education towards that. So it's more of a general question versus this specific.
You know, if I can just add one more thing then, Sean, and I don't know if this is really going to give you the answer that you're looking for, but get your feet wet a little bit too. You know, work with clients a little bit, and you may find that you get steered in that direction, and maybe you're already doing that, so I apologize but you'll steer. You'll realize, wow, I don't want to work with that particular issue, or this is really what I feel more passionate about. Does that help at all?
It does, and I understand that fully. Thank you for that reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point, Lynn. Some of those things will evolve. Sean, I know your background. You've got quite an amazing background with what you're into there with your current position. But yeah, sometimes it's one of those things. Just get out there and see what starts to evolve. And keep in mind too, with FDN, we say it's do it long enough and strong enough. Go through the basics, cover those things, and then if you need to go deeper, you can. That covers, I think, the majority of people. You're going to get that person where you want. But good thing is, like Lynn's talking about, there's things you can study. You can go in a little bit deeper. Of course, with us, we've got FDN-P and the FDN Advanced courses that go deeper, but also to kind of let Sharon know too. So medical director program. So if you do want to get into running an OAT test or anything else we offer through the medical director program, we offer that support. So you will run that lab and you'll have a consultation with one of us going over the entire case. So we can kind of help you figure out where that goes, or even where to go next. If you've got the 5 basic labs ran and you've done that, you're not seeing all the changes you want to see, well, where do I go? So we can kind of help you navigate that as well. So we're definitely here to support you too. So just keep that in mind and make sure Sharon knows that as well.
And Brandon, I'll reach out to you offline regarding that as well, so thank you.
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, thanks, Sean. Thanks for the question.
Back to you, Sean.
Thank you.
All right. That's good. So, all right, we're coming down to the last 5 minutes or so. So, anybody else has a question? We've got 5 minutes. We can probably answer it for you there. And Lynn, appreciate you jumping in on those and good answers with those. So, unless we've got another hand raised, I'll ask you. So, one quick question, Lynn, on this one. So, structuring your FDN services, what does that look like? Are you put some kind of package together where you're doing some coaching, or how does that look right now?
Yes, so it's 3 months support services is what that is. I also offer a one-time 90-minute based on any information that they have that they can give to me, and then I can compile and make recommendations moving forward. But I have one client that chose that. All my other clients want that support for 3 months. They want to be able to have access to me to be able to say, okay, because no recommendations. It's not as though the recommendations, okay, there you go, and best to you. This is really a follow-up and making sure that you get that support and saying, okay, we need to tweak and refine this. This is working. This isn't working. So it's a 3-month support system, which I know when I took FDN was advocated, and I definitely like that support in place. So I structure it that way. Lab testing is additional, and trying to think how else I can answer any of that. Yeah, I think that pretty much answers your question. Does it?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, exactly. That's what we say. It's usually 3 months, maybe a minimum 3 months, more 6 months, or longer than that to go through the process. And I think they need you. There's things to tweak. There's course correction that will occur. There's just emotional support. There's just the knowledge, somebody being there, especially like you said, they're worn out. It's been a battle for them possibly. You've been there. You've done that. And just talking with you can just brighten somebody's day and kind of get them reignited to keep going with what they're doing. So, and that level of support is not something that you see so much. I don't know, you know many of the physicians they might have worked with. I don't know that level of support is at all apparent in that realm of things. I think it's probably something new to have somebody there to answer questions anytime that they need and have that much of a regular connection.
Yes. No, I would agree. I think, parents seem very pleased with that. And a lot of my testimonials, I'll have a few that'll say, my seizures ended, or my seizures reduced, or I have improved energy, but a lot of them are, she was there for me, available. There's a lot to be said for that, just being able to support. So hopefully, any of the new practitioners, you do like working on a long-term basis, because I will tell you that's a requirement for sure, is that it's a relationship. And it requires some coaching and some great jobs and, let's try this if that didn't really work well for you. And I'm sure this is probably very remedial, so I apologize if I'm being redundant here, but people need support. So if you're willing to watch their back and really support them and sometimes, really break down any problem situations too, and be able to dissect that and figure out an alternative route, those are the types of things that I feel like my clients need. So.
Mm-hmm. I think it's where we do some of our best work. Yeah, it's great to go through test results and make recommendations, but it's after the fact, because like you said, everybody's body is different. It's going to respond in different ways or not respond, and it's that walking them down that path, that journey. I think, again, that's where I think we do some of our best work, definitely.
Yes, I would agree. Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, well, a couple of minutes left here. Lynn, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think you've sparked some interest with some people, and just to hear the level that you're working at, the results that you're getting. You want to tell us a little bit about what you have as far as upcoming projects or books or speaking engagements or anything you have like that going on?
Right. Well, I'm studying again right now through the Bioindividual Nutrition course through Julie Matthews. It's an excellent course, and her population base is kids with autism as well. So, again, it's just trying to identify on a deeper level in nutrition and diet, and this has really been beneficial. So that's been a big focus of mine. I do hold webinars once a month. Those have been very instrumental, and what's nice is that I record them, or they're recorded. That's a great option for parents that are often just tired and fatigued and can't join a webinar on a whim, but can watch a recorded webinar and then fast forward and watch as they need. So really, I do a lot of that. I have a Facebook page. I have my website as well, and my email marketing campaign, which I do email, or I blog once a week. Oftentimes on new research or research that I've discovered. Those are really my focuses for now. I'd say I have no major projects coming out. I think ultimately, I do have an ebook, and I will expand on that. That will ultimately be my goal. But this is going to be a great year of further learning and working with a lot more of my client base. So there's going to be a lot of experiences that come out of this. I'm really excited, actually.
It sounds awesome. So website there, nutritionforseizures.com, and then advocateforhealing.com. So it's in the article there on the FDN Connect community. You can link to that, and I'm sure Lynn wouldn't mind hearing from some of our folks here in the family. If they have some questions or a little bit of advice, I'm sure she'd be happy to help with that. And that's tremendous. Well, any parting words for us, Lynn, to our group here, people graduating and getting into this? Anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that's everything, Brandon. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the call, and I'm hoping that the new practitioners, really took something away from this. That's always my goal, making sure that, whoever I'm speaking with takes at least one thing away from this. So, and please feel free to reach out as well. I'd love to be in communication with anyone that may have questions or comments or have information to offer me. Please know that I am welcoming. I have a team. I am not a one-man show. So, yes.
Good. Well, I guarantee you we got some stuff out of this for sure. We covered a lot of ground and very encouraging. So, all right. Well, that is the show for today. We'll be on next week here, so you guys tune in. And I think Reed's going to be doing an interview. So tune in, and you guys just have a great weekend. Lynn, thanks again for being on, and talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Sounds great. Thank you. Bye.